Welcome to Big Blend Radio Success Express Show, where we talk about business, leadership, and career development. Welcome, everyone. So excited today because we're going to talk about leadership, but how to be a secure leader. Someone who stands with, hey, I know stuff, but also has some compassion. Dr. Jaime Goff is here. She has written the book, The Secure Leader, Discover the Hidden Forces That Shape Your Leadership Story and How to Change Them. And I love that because the world really has changed and is in a constant mode of change. And so we have to be on our feet, right? So welcome. How are you?
Yes, we absolutely do. And thank you, Lisa. Thank you for having me.
You know what? I'm so glad you're here. And, even before we started recording, I was talking about how timely your book is. And right now we see so much shift and change. A lot of it even has to do politically. It has to do with what our world is changing with AI. And then there's just all kinds of shifts and change with technology and workforces, and even jobs are changing up, right? So as a leader, you've got to be strong, but I think sometimes compassion is lacking.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is just a really critical piece. A lot of times in conversations, people ask, you mentioned AI and, what do we as humans bring? And I think it really is exactly what you said. As humans, what we need to become even better at than we have been for sure is bringing kind of compassion and humanity and understanding and empathy into the workplace, because we need it now more than ever with all of the volatility that we're facing.
Yeah, it is volatility. That's a good word.
Yeah.
That's a good word to use for it.
Hmm.
Um, when we talk about secure leadership, like being the secure leader,
Yeah.
how much of that is we think we're secure and then we'll puff up our ego to look secure, or at the
Mhm.
same time, looking at being the stiff upper lip kind of thing.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
are those kind of just, those are insecurities then, right?
They are, absolutely. And I think, secure leaders, where you can tell the difference between someone who really and truly is a secure leader versus someone who, like you said, is just, puffing themselves up or trying to make themselves look kind of strong and put together. The difference is that the secure leader has a balance of confidence and humility.
Okay.
And so
Yeah.
there is that confidence, but it comes from a genuine, authentic place of knowing their worth and value as a person. So there's not a need to prove yourself, right? Because fundamentally, you feel like you do have talents and you have gifts and you have something to offer to the world, and you have worth and dignity simply because you're a human being, as does everyone else around you. But at the same time, you have the humility to be able to, receive feedback, to hear feedback and be open to it, to be open to people pointing out your blind spots, to be open and willing to admit when you've made a mistake, to say I'm sorry, to repair relationships when you've hurt it. So that is really, I think, the marker of a secure leader compared to those who might look really polished and confident and like they have everything together, and never let people see the cracks. That's not really secure.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? Because when you're secure, you're okay with people seeing the cracks in you, and seeing all of what you bring to the table, even the weaknesses and the blind spots.
And it's actually when the cracks are out there on how you handle it, right? I think that's
Absolutely,
the other
yes.
thing is like, excuse me, as a leader, going off and things are shifting and changing, and maybe your company is going, okay, we got AI, we can, we number one, who's going to learn how to use it
Mhm.
effectively? And then we all know that's going to be a job shift, right? And how do we keep the team that needs to stay there not feeling like they're on the edge of being kicked out? And so
Mhm.
that's, I think we're really in that position for leadership a lot, right? And
Yes.
and you need to have that that goes back to that human compassion. I really
Mhm.
believe but it's through those cracks is how you see someone really rise up.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. How we respond under pressure, how we respond to those cracks. Do we become our, there's a lot of volatility out there. Do we respond to volatility with volatility ourselves?
Oh, yeah.
Um, or are we able to, it doesn't mean that being a secure leader doesn't mean that you don't have your own fears and anxieties and worries and that you don't struggle with those things, right? But what it does mean is that you have awareness of that, a keen awareness of that, and you're able to process it effectively with yourself and in relationship with others. And you have, good, safe relationships with whom you
Mhm.
can work through some of those things with so that when you show up like with your team or in your organization and your workplace, you're able to speak to those issues and those fears that everyone is dealing with in a way that's calming, that
Mhm.
acknowledges, right? You can acknowledge the fear, you can acknowledge the anxiety and that it's there. And in fact, if you don't acknowledge it, that's problematic because then
Yeah.
you're suppressing it, right? And you're ignoring it. So you don't want to do that. It's important to acknowledge all those fears, those anxieties, those doubts, but you can still respond to them with calm. And that is really what, again, is one of the differentiators of a secure leader.
Is this a generational change that has gone over time? Like we look at even parenting generationally has changed,
Mhm.
and our younger people now have more sensitivities. Like if you had the sensitivities we have now and you put them back 20, 30, 40 years ago, they mm-mm. It wouldn't work. You know what I mean? So we've had
Yeah.
to gradually do this shift, and change
Mhm.
doesn't happen overnight, right?
Right.
It feels
Right.
like it.
Yeah, sometimes it
You
feels like
wake up
it,
to
like
something, you're
AI,
like,
for example,
"Oh,
right?
yeah, yeah." It's like AI has been here for a very long
It
time,
has
but it
been.
feels like it just happened. It's like a
Yeah.
mushroom just sprouted. What happened?
Mhm.
So yeah, it's really interesting. And as a leader, it's again, I feel like it's almost like being a parent, and I'm not talking about
Mhm.
people being kids at all,
Right.
but it's being that care and strength at the same time, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
But it
Yep.
just feels like, I think for some people, it's like, how did this happen overnight? But it is a change. If you think
Mhm.
about the silent generation, the World War II generation, there was this very big silence
Mhm.
and never communicating what happened. And that's understandable. But I think through all those years, you we're like still unpacking stuff from eons
Mhm.
ago. Does
Yeah.
that make
Yeah.
sense?
It does, and what you I'm kind of, like, shifting over into, my kind of family therapy,
Yeah, I know it.
background and
Well,
hat, right?
everyone,
But
yeah, yeah. You. That's what I love about it. You are a doctor. I'm gonna lie
yeah.
down now. Okay.
But yes, and what you end up seeing, I think, is that when and we can, like you mentioned, like the silent generation, the World War II generation, and just the suppression of emotion and not intentionally, right? None of us says, we want to create generational trauma, you know,
No,
in
no
our
one meant that.
families. No one intentionally does that, but we unconsciously create generational trauma and when we don't process and talk about our own trauma, it inevitably gets passed down because it impacts the way we show up, as
Yeah.
parents, as leaders, whatever it might be. It impacts the way that we show up. And so then the way we show up that impacts, our children and so on and so forth. And so it can carry on and on and on. And I think what we're seeing now is a more of a recognition of that. I think we have a lot more understanding, just from like the social sciences and from psychology as well, um, about about the impact of generational trauma and about the impact of like emotional suppression, and how that damages us and really hurts us in so many ways, physically, emotionally, relationally, that because we have more awareness of that, there's been more research on those types of topics. So I think that's why we're hearing more about, and it's making a shift in so many areas, like in parenting, but then also in what's expected of leaders too. There's just an understanding that kind of that like ultra hierarchical, kind of transactional, do what I say because I'm the leader and that's what you do, that people just don't respond. We know that people don't respond well to that. And
Mm.
in our current kind of culture and current generations, that doesn't get the outcomes,
No.
right? That you need and that you're looking for, especially when it comes to organizational and team performance. You have to, something different is required to get the outcomes and the high performance and the innovation that we're looking for from our teams.
Well, I think it's so important that we talk about this because we spend so much time at work.
Yes.
And when we take our personal into our work, it does affect it, doesn't it?
Yeah. And you can't not take your personal into your work. I think that's also, maybe historically been a bit of a misconception. It's like leave work at work and home at home. But that's just not the way we're built as humans. We don't have an on off switch. Uh, kind of look at, leadership is like who you are is who you are,
Right.
right? And that's going to play out in your personal relationships and in your professional relationships and in
Mhm.
leadership.
And leadership comes from leading yourself. You have to lead yourself
Yes.
first, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
100%. Yeah.
Oh boy, we have to be adults now. Well, what led you to write the book? Because I know that you do speaking. You've obviously,
Mhm.
deal with a lot of clients and all kinds of things. What was it that you said, you know what, I need to write this and really peg it on leadership?
Yeah. Um, I've been thinking about writing this book for about 10 years.
Oh, cool.
Maybe even a little longer.
And congratulations, because it's out, everybody. Go
Yeah,
get it.
it is. It is. It's out finally. But no,
Link is in episode notes. Just kidding.
thank you,
Yeah.
Lisa. But yeah, so I started thinking about writing this book 10 years ago. And, like I mentioned, I do have a background in family therapy and
Mm,
couple therapy. And that was kind of the first half of my career was in that world. And, some of the things I talk about in the book around like, again, attachment styles and how that shows up in leadership, that was really informed by my therapeutic work. And and also like some of the research teams that I was on, and when I was working on my PhD, etc. And even back then, I started thinking, a lot of these dynamics and these patterns that I'm seeing between, you know, caregivers and children, and even in like couple relationships, especially when I moved into a leadership role, a formal leadership role for the first time. I was like, oh, some of these same dynamics are happening here, like between leaders and their teams. And so I became interested in that and was, thought, I wonder if there's any research, out
yeah.
there about this. And so I started digging into that and discovered that there was. The problem was that it was only in academic journals, and no one in the real world reads academic journals.
No.
Right? Professors read academic journals, but
Lawyers do.
yeah, yeah,
Doctors.
like, but people in leadership roles in organizations, corporations, they're not reading this. And so I really wanted to bring it into, kind of more of the public conversation. And when I started 10 years ago, I put out some feelers, right, on like LinkedIn and some blog posts I wrote, and there was like zero response, Lisa. It was like
Well, that
crickets.
encourages you to really write a book. Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, maybe this idea isn't really worth anything. But it was still there, still kept nagging at me. And then after COVID, just based on what I was seeing kind of in leadership and some of the changes in the workplace and organizational culture, I was like, well, maybe now. So I put some
Yeah.
feelers out again. And then all of a sudden, like I had so many, like, responses and people
Wow.
were interested, and so that's when I was like, "Okay, now's the time. Now's the time to actually sit down and write this book."
Yeah, COVID, I think, was like therapy for all of us.
Yeah, in some ways. I mean, there
And
were
some of it was
definitely
derailing. I
right,
mean,
positive and negative
chocolate chip
outcomes.
cookies really got made extra time, like
Mhm, mhm.
double chocolate chips in there at that time. So we
Yeah.
really had that. But personally, for us, we were out in parks, so we had a good time. Um,
Yeah.
but but it was really, I was like, oh, thank goodness, everyone finally learned Zoom. But it really talked about relationships.
Mhm.
And, going back to the workplace culture, I was watching something the other day and thought, oh, I'm so glad you're coming on the show because of this, where the lady was saying, your best friends at work are actually some of your most crucial friends. And if
Yeah.
they're a good leader, this is even better,
Mhm.
because you spend that much time there. Whatever is going on in life, with life, death, all of that, right? Happens, it does affect work. And if work is ignoring that, and you're
Mhm.
spending majority of your time there, eventually you just, and during COVID, people started to question, do I want to be there? How do I still be
Mhm.
a leader even if my team is on, a computer
Right.
somewhere?
Mhm.
Are they
Mhm.
showing up with video on Zoom with allergies like me today? Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry. So everyone, if I'm coughing and spluttering in front of you, sorry about that. But that's the thing. It's about being honest and real. And I think even I mean, watching news people with cats and babies walking through was like the coolest thing. We watched a
Yes.
news thing the other day, and one of the commentators had cats, and we're going, "Oh, thank goodness, this is cool. We're going to watch this." Did we listen? I don't know, because the cats were fun. But we've gone through so many changes,
Yeah.
but COVID did teach us, oh, the value of relationships, the value
Connection
of
is so
unity.
important.
How many
Mhm.
people, we did so many podcasts, live shows at that time, and people, we just did parties too, where people were calling in just for the human connection of it
Mhm.
all.
Yep.
And to spread the word of unity. And I kept going, wow, this is wild. And I was like, well, this isn't really a normal show. And people are like, you need to keep it. It's part of history. And I was like, wow, of how we were as humans wanting
Mhm.
to reach out.
Mhm. Yeah.
So in a workplace situation, no matter, we're still in that weird zone though, right? It's not
Yeah.
going to be back to where it was.
No. No. Yeah, it's not.
And
And,
good.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, and people are, most organizations, companies now are kind of bringing the trend is, bringing people back into the office. And but I think because we realized how much we needed connection, human connection during COVID when we were so isolated in so many ways, people are wanting more of that from their workplaces than they did before. And there's a realization that it's I think there's more of a realization that really it's a need. And like you said, our workplace relationships are incredibly important, and our relationships with our peers and our leaders.
Yeah, and the leaders, and it's different than, like, I know you do a lot of public speaking and speaking with organizations. Have we changed in regards to, doing a course, like you're going to go on the ropes course and the trust falls and all of that? Are we still doing that, or is that elevated and changed too?
I've never done personally, those aren't the types of,
Yeah.
workshops I do, but I think
What are people, what are
yeah,
the organizations seeking? Because
yeah,
I'm talking about
right,
something I did,
yeah,
like, back when,
mhm,
yeah, back in the day, going, "This is fake." You know what I mean? It
yeah,
was kind of
yeah,
fake, and I'm not
and
knocking what it is today. It could have
right,
just been a bad scenario where we were.
mhm,
I mean, because it was a bunch of salespeople, and they were like, "If you throw $5 on the floor, no one's gonna catch you. They're gonna go for the $5." And I went, "Oh my gosh, this is not good. This is not fun." And it was almost like, it was just,
mm,
no, it was like high school.
yeah, yeah, and that's what when you were talking about that, and I've never experienced, like, one of those types of, like,
Mhm.
workshops or, retreats, workplace retreats, so, I can't really speak to it from experience, myself, but like you said, it's a bit manufactured. So I don't know if, you
Yeah.
know, fake is, maybe fake, maybe manufactured, but I think people are looking for more authentic conversation.
Yeah.
And I am getting, and my book isn't about emotional intelligence, but
No.
I get a lot of requests from organizations where they're like, we, especially, you know, like senior leaders, like we who maybe were leaders pre-COVID, right? And they're
Okay.
still leaders and they're having to make that adjustment and they're kind of struggling to make the adjustment to that kind of more more present, more compassionate, more empathetic that their workers are wanting and expecting from them. So I get a lot of requests for like our leaders need to grow in emotional intelligence. And I mean, my book doesn't speak about it in that way, but it does touch on a lot of that. So I'm kind of, you know,
You like to play in the
framing
gray
things.
area. That's where
Yeah,
change
yeah,
happens
exactly.
and growth. Well, I always talk about
Yeah.
that. The gray area is where growth happens.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
where the seed, gets its
Mhm.
roots. But I love this part of it because the secure leader, what if you're not the secure
Yeah.
leader, right?
Mhm.
That's who
Mhm.
you're like, hey, you're gonna have to make a change. And what if you are the big gruff person,
Mhm.
like this way or that way, and you have to make a change and have that realization? How do you come out of making that realization? Because that's a big one
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
move forward and feel that you can even move forward. How many
Mhm.
people quit? Or do they even go to that point?
And that's what I hope they do. And that's what I'm trying to like with my book and with some of the work I'm doing with organizations. I'm, trying to help people gain that self-awareness, which is really the first step to be able to see that and I think a lot of those types of behaviors, like being gruff, being distant, being critical, demanding, those are self-protective behaviors.
Yeah, they're shells. They're it doesn't mean there's no kindness in there at
Right,
all.
it doesn't, and that they are insecure behaviors. It's a sign of insecurity when people are, engaging in those types of behaviors, and, I think what I try to help people see is that those are self-protective behaviors, and they probably develop those behaviors very early on in their life,
Mm,
and it was a survival mechanism, perhaps,
mm.
and but that doesn't mean that that style or those behaviors are continuing to serve you well.
So you can
Tho
adjust.
Yeah, those are behaviors that might be hurting you, and let's talk about how they might be hurting you, how they might be getting in the way of you continuing to be and you may have been fine and may have been able to be successful with those in the past, but it's no longer working. So let's talk about how it's no longer working, how those behaviors aren't serving you well anymore, and whether you do have the capability to change them, but the willingness to, right? And so people do have to have the willingness to go there, to have that self awareness, and then to, really dig in and try to identify like the why. Why is it that I am this way, and what can I do to have my needs met, in more, you know, pro-relational ways, instead of destructive ways. And so that yeah, that self-awareness is really important, and I think once that kind of comes about, once people have self-awareness, then they have the ability to pause when they're triggered.
Mhm.
Well, to behave that way. They have the opportunity to pause and in that moment and to be thoughtful and intentional about how they want to respond. And so I try to, especially in my coaching, help people identify what those triggers are for them and then help them to slow down their reactive emotional process so that they can choose how to respond more intentionally and show up in a way that will benefit them. Right? So it benefits the individual to make that change, but also will benefit their team, help their team perform better, help their organization meet their goals.
And to be able to stay on that path is that
Mhm.
slowdown you're talking about and actually have some kind of You have to do this on a daily basis, catch yourself,
Yes.
and journaling, things like that. Does that help?
Absolutely. Yeah, journaling and because security when you're trying to become more secure, it is
Mhm.
built through kind of small, repeated habits and practices. So, journaling might be something that works really well for someone or, you know, things like, meditation and deep breathing can be really helpful. But also, you know, exercise and, walking. I have some of my I'm
I'm there.
I
I'm there.
I
That's mine.
process, all the, like, negative emotion and triggers when I'm walking my dog at 5:30 AM in
Mhm.
the morning, right?
I'm
Um,
with you. Yeah.
so, yeah, there are different ways that we can kind of learn to, like, process and identify what we're feeling so that we can be more intentional in the way that we show up. But it is repeated choices,
Mhm.
and it's also about staying engaged with people, and I think if we have it's important to have close connection, deep connection with other people because they also help us process. If we have those safe spaces where we can talk through some of these things. And for leaders, especially those in senior roles, it can be really lonely at the top. And they may have to go outside of their organization and be really intentional about cultivating those types of safe relationships where they can talk through some of the doubts they're having, the mistakes they've made, and, get that support, from a peer network as well.
A network or even a coach or a
Yes, a coach.
mentor. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm,
Well,
yep,
that also to me it's like sometimes, especially in the way the world is right now, we have to remember that we're our own leader. We talked about that a little bit ago.
yes,
But when you go seek help and things like that, it's about elevating yourself, not just for the company, right?
exactly,
Because
yes.
you may be a leader in a company with a really bad ownership or above
Mhm,
you leadership that's
mhm,
toxic or maybe not doing things that you believe in. And so just do it for yourself because
yes,
you, yeah, you know what I mean? It's like I think we
mhm,
forget and we become the company store in a way and we shouldn't. We need
yeah.
to still be who we are. We need to be relevant on LinkedIn. Uh-oh, I better go look at my profile. It's been a few years, a couple decades or more. But it is I think we always have to look at who we are our own business.
Mm.
If you
Yes,
I mean, I have my own company, so it's different. But like for people in the workforce doing things that I would never want to do, but I thank you for doing them because we need these people that do this. I mean, it's like amazing, but you need to be your own business. Does that
mhm. Yeah,
make sense?
absolutely, absolutely, and I think and that is something that, I really do like to emphasize that doing this work to become more secure, first and foremost, it benefits you. You're gonna be healthier, you're gonna be more content, you're gonna have more fulfilling relationships, you're gonna thrive, um, and so, first and foremost, it benefits the individual. Now, if you really become more secure and you are in a highly toxic organization where, it can be difficult, right? Because, but change can happen from anywhere. Right? So,
Right?
change can happen from anywhere, but sometimes you may have to make a decision about, okay, the person that I want to be and how I want to show up every day, is this being supported? Is that supported by where I am right now? And there may come a time that you have to say, you know what, this organization, its culture, its values, whatever it might be, just does not fit with me and doesn't fit within my integrity
Mm.
for what I value and what I believe, and, sometimes that, that
That's
choice
the
needs
wrong
to be made,
soil in the
right?
gray area. The
Yeah,
wrong
exactly,
to me, yeah, the wrong
exactly.
soil. It doesn't
Mhm.
you want to be able to grow, and if you don't have the soil and the fertilizer and the
Yes.
water and the light, which I
Mhm.
think you're bringing the light and the substance in with what you're doing with your book. It's like, here's the hard truths, but here's the light of it to feel good
Yeah.
and move
Yep.
forward. You have to
Mhm,
have that
mhm.
that culture, just like
Yes.
a
Yeah,
plant,
yeah.
to be able to grow.
Mhm.
So I think this is so cool. And I believe your book should be really invaluable to the HR world. I look at people that are in HR,
Mm.
and I have another podcast that I do about that, and I go, Wow, HR people are like daring superhuman cool. And they have to deal with it
Mhm.
from both sides, the employees and the leadership, and they're stuck in the middle. That's
Yeah.
they and they have to be really strong leaders in a way.
Mhm.
Sometimes I think there are
Absolutely.
more leaders in a company than the leaders.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
And, and the company that I, like, currently work for, that's what I do. I'm the I do leadership development because, we have a dedicated team to that because we know that
Hmm.
the success of the organization really hinges on the quality of our leaders and how they are engaging and motivating and inspiring their teams. And I live in that kind of HR world,
Yeah.
in my corporate life. And so,
I bow down.
yeah. Oh, thank you.
But
Mm.
yeah, it's crucial. So do you
Mhm.
think the secure leader, your book will be something for, HR departments to like
Yeah.
someone knows me, they get me.
Mhm.
Yeah?
Yes, yeah. I hope so, and, like, I've done some, workshops and presentations specifically for HR leaders, and people in that space, and have some upcoming that I'm doing as well. So, yeah, I hope that they will find this, validating, but then also as a source for them, right?
Yeah,
Because,
yeah.
like you said, folks in the HR world have a lot to deal with, coming at them from all sides, and so hopefully this will also help them become more secure.
Fiction writers have book clubs, and I want, you to have a book club. Like I want that because I think, it'd be so cool. I know you do presentations and everything, but
Mhm.
I kind of want like wine and cheese and snacks and coffee and whatever, like a relaxed environment for
Yeah.
business. Not the
Yes,
well,
yeah.
maybe the happy hour, right? Um, because I think presentations are great, but I
Mhm.
really believe that these conversations actually need to
Yeah.
happen. And
Mhm.
if you had book clubs where you had leadership from different specters, just everyone around the world could connect in and just have
Yeah.
this discussion. I want the secure leader, group happy hour.
I tried to do one a while back and didn't get much traction, but maybe, I can give
Yeah.
it another try. Yeah.
Oh, you got to because you had to with your book, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
Timing is
yep.
everything, and you
Mhm.
persisted. So
Yep.
you found your soil and your light and your water. You
Mhm.
did. Well, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to have you on the show. Everyone, again, the link is in the episode notes. You can go to Dr. Jaime Goff and .com, and that is, go there. But the link is in the episode notes. Again, the book is The Secure Leader. Discover the hidden forces that shape your leadership story and how to change them. It is something to read now, and it is out now. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Lisa.
Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio Success Express Show. This show is brought to you by Big Blend Magazines. You can keep up with us at bigblendradio.com and check out our magazines at blendradioandtv.com.